This trade is absolutely insane as we have a massive update on Giannis Antetokounmpo trade talks to the Houston Rockets and what a trade would look like for H-Town to acquire the two-time NBA Most Valuable Player. Welcome into Rockets Digest. I'm Jace Andrews, and we're so happy to have you here. Before we get going, hit that subscribe button. I'm hearing every time someone subscribes, it gives the Rockets a better percentage to beat the Warriors in Game 6 tonight. So if you're watching this before the game, do us a favor, do the Rockets a favor, and hit that subscribe button. Free Rockets content as well. Let's talk about it. Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be one of the top names on the NBA trade block this offseason. And let's start with the backstory here. Obviously, the Milwaukee Bucks are out of the playoffs. They got pretty much taken down by the Indiana Pacers. Got the one game, but overall, it was a pretty clean series. Now, there were injuries. Damian Lillard got hurt in the latter part of the series, and Giannis played fantastic. There just wasn't enough pieces around him. So, Giannis, as a trade, is likely going to happen this offseason. NBA personnel, NBA media, NBA front offices are preparing for a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade, and teams around the league are prepping their offers to the Milwaukee Bucks. Teams that have already put their name out there: San Antonio Spurs, the Orlando Magic, a couple of the big name teams. There's slight talks about Boston, LA. I don't know how much I believe that. They have the assets, but Boston just won a championship. LA doesn't have the assets when it's all said and done, so we'll see how much they're actually in here. But the main team that has been talked about time and time again, not just for Giannis, but pretty much every trade asset coming up into this NBA offseason, it's the Houston Rockets, because they have the necessary means to give back something to a team that would be of interest to that certain team. And so what does a trade look like for H-Town? This is what the Ringer's Logan Murdoch said, saying for the Rockets to acquire Giannis Antetokounmpo, they would give up Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün, and first-round picks in 2025 and 2027, plus one of the Suns' future first-round picks that the Rockets have acquired in previous dealings. So that's a lot to give up, and I asked this question before we go any farther. Would you accept that trade, yes or no, in the comment section? I'm looking at them. I want to know what your thoughts is. Is Giannis worth Şengün, Green, and when it's all said and done, 3 first-round picks? Go down in their comment section, yes or no. Personally, Giannis is a 2-time MVP. He knows the postseason well, and he is more than enough for the Rockets to put themselves as a contender for the next decade, potentially. However, that is so much when you have Green and Şengün already locked up. So I want to continue on in this report and see what the Ringer's Josh Murdoch says as we start with this. Quote, despite the recent postseason struggles, the Houston Rockets will enter the summer of 2025 in the inevitable position of being an overachieving young team with a treasure trove of assets. They're in prime position to acquire a star, end quote. And we've talked about this. We know that coming up in this NBA offseason, whether the Rockets can pull out this series against the Golden State Warriors, move on to the second series, heck, they even get to the Western Conference Finals and into the finals in general, the point still stands. They overachieved this year and have so many different assets that they could give up. It makes it a little more of a idea if the Rockets fall to the Warriors, or let's say they win this series but then get shellacked by Minnesota. It makes it a little more of a possibility that they're going to go out and make a trade, because that just makes sense. However, is Giannis the move? And that's where we continue on in this report. Saying, quote, for months, they've been linked to Kevin Durant. We've talked about that. Who seems to be all but finished in Phoenix. But with all due respect to Slim, Giannis would set up Houston to be a factor in the Western Conference for the next decade, end quote. And that's exactly my point. Kevin Durant is 37 years old. His time is coming to an end. His last chapter would be with the Houston Rockets. Giannis Antetokounmpo still has lots of career left to give, and he is a legitimate superstar, even more than Kevin Durant, which is kind of tough to say, but just looking at his stats, he's averaging a double-double this year. 30 points, 11.9 rebounds. His assists are up this year as well. His field goal percentage is north of 600. He's been impeccable, and when you look at this playoffs, he was by himself basically when you take out Dame in that Milwaukee Bucks starting five. And he averaged the most points. He averaged the most rebounds. What are the Rockets known for? Rebounding. What are they not known for? Points. What do you get back with Giannis? Both those things. It seems like a pretty good fit for so many different reasons. However, it is a lot. And that's where we continue on with this report saying, quote, combine Giannis's all-world ability with the projections of Amen Thompson and the other young role players on the roster, and you can see a team that can compete with the Denvers, Minnesotans, and OKCs of the world while maintaining the youth to carry it into the next era of the NBA, end quote. That's a big thing right there, because there's not a lot of talk about how much depth that this Rockets team actually does have. I mean, you talk about what they've been able to acquire, and yes, I would say the top three guys for your young core are Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün, and Amen Thompson. And in this trade, you're giving up two of the three. But Cam Whitmore is still not mentioned as much as I think he should. Reed Sheppard is still not mentioned as much as I think he should. And if these guys are getting everyday reps, who's to say that they can't become top valuable players? Now, you don't have the guarantee of what Jalen Green has already become or what Alperen Şengün has already become. But if you get Giannis, the ability to grow with these players seems a little bit more likely than not. However, Giannis is not the only person that is going to be on this trade block that the Rockets have shown interest on. Obviously, we talked about Kevin Durant. But in terms of what you want to complain about in this postseason, it's probably Jalen Green. It's probably that he needs to score better. And so if you're trading anything, why not go out and get Devin Booker? And that's where he also said this, saying, quote, the Rockets can offer potential future all-stars plus valuable first-rounders. But if the Bucks say, you got more than that, guys. Come on, give us Amen. Like, if they're going to ask for more than, we're going to be willing to offer, we can always maintain Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün and maybe seek out a different shooter. I mean, you could still trade just Jalen Green to Phoenix, for Devin Booker. That's a very likely trade that we've seen kind of passed around. Now, Booker, again, I think is just an older version of Jalen Green. I think Jalen Green, he's just so young and having his first taste of the playoffs, and I think there's so much pressure on him that it's getting to him a little bit. It's also hard when, you're playing a team that has had, I know that none of these players really remember the past series against Golden State, but Golden State has always had the Rockets' numbers. That's just been the way it is, and that continues on through generations, and Steph Curry's just going to feel confident when he's playing a team that he's consistently put up good numbers against. So what does this trade actually provide in return to the Houston Rockets? Well, it provides a two-time MVP. It provides a guy who is very experienced in the playoffs with the Finals MVP, a guy who has won a championship, and quite frankly, a guy who fits with the Rockets for so many different reasons. I think with the Bucks coming to Houston, going to the Western Conference, it fits in a lot of different mannerisms. But it's just about, is that worth it? And how much do the Rockets actually want this? And that's kind of the interesting part. Giannis has done great these playoffs. It's no sign of that, no saying that thing is different. But at the same time, Alperen Şengün has been great as well. He's averaged at least he's had at least 15 points per game in all 5 games up to this point. He's had a game of 30 and a game of 26. And in the games that he's scored less, he's done a lot more in the rebounding position. He had the 11 rebound game during his 15-point game. He had 17 points and 16 rebounds in the Game 2 win, and then 15 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists in this last game, Game 5. Yeah, he missed that game-winning shot in game number 4. However, this is just my personal opinion. I don't think that the winning protocol would be to go up against Draymond Green. And I understand that's a shot that Alperen has made time and time again, but I'm not putting that up against Draymond Green, especially after that night and the emotions that were in that game. That's just not the shot. I'm giving it to Fred because he's so much older, so much more experienced, and was lighting it up that game and has been lighting it up since that game. So that's just my personal opinion, but that's kind of off topic and for a lot of different reasons. But these games are just hard to say, man, yeah, we're going to give him up for Giannis. Yes, Giannis is averaging 30 points in the game. Yes, he's averaging 15 rebounds. But Alperen Şengün, in his first playoffs, is the 5th best guy in terms of rebounding per game. I honestly struggle with it more because Alperen's involved. And I know that makes the most sense because that's the position that Giannis would come in and, play that role for the Rockets. And Jalen Green, obviously, you kind of then miss out on him. And you're almost forced to bring back Freddie at that point or find somebody to run the one. But I almost think that it could be worth it if you have the experience. And so it's really just a question now of what happens to the Rockets. If they lose tonight in Game 6, which if you're subscribing, they're not going to lose. But if you're not subscribing and they lose, then the Rockets could easily be so much more aggressive this offseason in terms of pursuing some of these big-name free agents and big-name trade assets. Because we've talked about it so many times. The Rockets, the organization, Rafael, Udoka, they want to win now. They think this team is ready. But at the same time, you have to understand that that can cause for some very aggressive decisions that may or may not work out. However, if you're talking in terms of KD or Giannis is the answer. I know that there's more assets involved, but you get a younger player, a player who's going to be with you longer, and for long-term success is better. I know the win now is there, but that's just kind of the opinion. My hope is the Rockets win Game 6. They go to Game 7, take out the Warriors, come back from 3-1, beat the percentages, and then go on to face Ant and the Timberwolves, hopefully beat them too, and, kind of silence the doubters a little bit. Because I think if you can get to even just the Western Conference Finals, and so I say just the Western Conference Finals, but that was kind of the expectation of this team going into the NBA postseason as the 2 seed, then you shut up all the critics. You say this team is there. It's just like OKC from last year. OKC wasn't there just yet. They couldn't have it there. And now look at them. They're the best team in the NBA, best record in both conferences, one of probably the shoo-ins to be in the NBA Finals in my mind. So it kind of gets the comparison of that. It really just depends on how the Rockets do in these next, hopefully, 2 games against the Golden State Warriors and beyond that. Or if it's a loss tonight or a loss in Game 7, the questions start becoming bigger and bigger, and the aggressive moves start to become a very, very real possibility. We appreciate you joining us. If you made it to the end of the video, I do appreciate you watching, and I cannot tell you how much fun I've had making these videos, and I wish you the best. So hit the subscribe button, and hopefully you can find more enjoyment from these videos as much as I do. We'll see you next time, Rockets fans, here, and, clutch up Game 6 tonight. Let's go, Rockets.